frigidly cold outside in Northeast Ohio, so spring training doesn't seem all that close, but it's a little close. The Guardians announced their non-roster invitees to spring training. We'll talk about some not-so-surprising moves there. International signed and MLB. We'll talk about Cleveland's class and some moves that could still be made. And, of course, we will get to some trades. It is Trade Talk Thursday on Locked On Guardians.
Tanner Bobby of the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's show of Locked On Guardians. I'm your host, Justin Latta. We're going to get to some spring training non-roster invitees to the Guardians Major League Spring Training. Some, not really, no surprises on there, but some names that people were kind of wondering why they weren't there. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Guardians International signing class and a little uninspiring there. We'll get into why that is. We'll also talk about some possible trades that could still develop from that. And we are going to talk about 4 years since the Francisco Lindor trade. We'll get into that a little bit on Trade Talk Thursday. Before we get into all of that, I want to let you know you should be downloading the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. Why? What time is it? It's game time. I am your host, Justin Latta. I've been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007. I've seen many international prospects. I remember Dorsey Paulino. Do you remember Dorsey Paulino? I do. I saw a lot of Dorsey Paulino. But I have been the editor-in-chief of Guardians/Indians Baseball Insider previously, and now I'm a freelancer at the News Herald and Morning Journal. You can find my Guardians prospect work as well as Next Year in Cleveland.substack.com. Would love for you to subscribe there. It is free. I've also got some additional content coming out there. And also Prospects Live as well, helping out with some Guardians prospect coverage there. Before we get into today's show, a couple things we want to point out again. Locked On Guardians Live Stream Fest, February 1st for insiders. The screen says Zoom chat on YouTube right now. I think we're going to maybe do Google Meet or something, or Google Hangout. That's still a thing because there's no time limits on that. Also want to get your feedback on that. If you're already an insider, thanks for being an insider already. If you're not, sign up. We're having a lot of fun. We're having a lot of discussions. I already told some of the insiders what we're going to talk about today as far as the non-roster invitees in the international signing class. Last week we had a chat about arbitration and extensions. That was fun. We've had a lot of fun over on the insiders group, so sign up to join that. And if you sign up, you'll get that link to join Jeff and I on Saturday, February 1st. It's going to be all of us chatting together. It's not just going to be you commenting and us reading it. We're actually going to be able to have a real back and forth discussion with all of our insiders on February 1st to try to, make up for the loss of Guards Fest this year. All the Guardians look like they got bullied into an off-season event that's coming up in a week, which is very strange. So we'll be there. Hopefully you will be there. Sign up, and we'll get you more details on that. And we'll have some special guests joining us as well. I know Sully from Locked On MLB is going to be on there with us as well. And let us know what time. If you're someone who's interested, if you signed up and you're interested in joining us live for that, because it is a live-only event, let us know what time works for you so we can kind of plan around that too. We want to make sure all of our listeners can get on there, all of our insiders can get on there, and we get some guests. So let us know, sign up for the Insiders Club and join us, have a little bit of fun. We're also 3K. We're also under 3,000 away from hitting 4K on YouTube. So we'd appreciate that. If you're not subscribing already, we'd love for you to do that or tell a friend, or if you're only on audio, listen on YouTube, it's just create an account or create 5 accounts. I don't care. Do whatever. Sign up for all kinds of emails that you don't use, because that way you'll never get bombarded with garbage spam. All right, let's get to the fun stuff today. Non-roster invitees for the Guardians. So guys that are not really a surprise. I'm not really going to go through any names that were on there before. Like, Tanner Burns is on there for the second year in a row. Will Dion's a first-year guy. Really, with pitchers and catchers, you need bodies, especially early in camp. You need guys for depth. Pitchers and catchers report first on February 11th. So that's fun. We're 26 days out of that. But you need arms. I will point out a couple of arms that, are interesting that have not been there before. So I just mentioned Will Dion, but I'm a little bit lower on him unless he can turn things around in 2025. I mentioned to the insiders that Bradley Hanner was somebody interesting on here. Bradley Hanner is going to be 26 in a week here. They took a couple weeks here, and he was at AA last year. He was a former minor league Rule 5 pick, and I think Hanner's interesting because I heard really good things about his slider last year at Akron. He was the closer once Andrew Walters got promoted to Columbus, and slider was good. He struck a ton of batters out. He throws in that 92, 94. It's not a big fastball, but it's effective, and the slider's really good. Really good stuff, swing and miss stuff. If he can repeat that at AAA, I think he's a guy who could be from some major league bullpen depth, maybe, a sixth inning guy or a long guy, up and down guy. He's interesting. I just thought it was interesting he was on this list, that I liked him last year a little bit in the minors, and he's getting his first shot here. Zach Kent, who they traded for international signing money last year, which we'll talk about later in this show, he's on that list. They re-signed him. Andrew Misiasek, who spent last year recovering from Tommy John, he's back. Ryan Webb is on that list as well. Not added to the 40 this offseason, not selected. Great to see Cody Huff and Cooper Ingle both at camp. Not a surprise for Cody Huff, as he should be the main AAA catcher this year, but Cooper Ingle should get the bulk of the time in Akron. It'll be good for him. This will be his first Major League spring training. A couple of infielders, Diane Frias, Milan Tolentino, Yordis Fedels, Will Wilson, a lot of depth guys. Chase DeLauter this year, you'll remember last year, he is officially a Major League invite to spring training, non-roster invitee. So Chase DeLauter is not on the 40-man roster, but he is an invite. That's why they call him non-roster invites to spring training. And you remember last year, a lot of people were wondering, well, he hasn't been sent down yet. He hasn't been cut from the Major League roster. Is he going to make the open day roster? And the reality was he was never on the non-roster invitees in 2024. He was up with the Major League club as like a special camp workout guy. He was not on the official spring training roster for major leaguers, and he wasn't on the 40-man roster, so he never had to be quote-unquote cut or sent down to minor league camp. He was just up for minor league camp working out with him every day. This year, a little bit different. He's still not on the 40, but he is in Major League spring training. Does that mean he has a chance to break the opening day roster with the Guardians? I would still say chances are pretty low. I won't say there's zero. There's not a ton of precedent for it. Let's see. The last couple of guys that have really broke camp that way have been Stephen Kwan, Tyler Naquin. That's really about it, right? And when Stephen Kwan made it, he was supposed to go back to AAA when Josh Naylor came back. If you remember, he wasn't supposed to stay up. Josh Naylor was going to come off the IL from his horrid leg injury in Minnesota the year before, sometime in late April, mid-April, whatever. And Kwan was going to go back to AAA. And Kwan became the leadoff hitter very quickly and had that, crazy run in Kansas City. He stuck. I don't think the same thing will happen with Chase DeLauter here. They still have guys in that right field rotation. I think they're going to use the same excuse of, it's cold in Cleveland in April, even though it's, obviously tropical down in Columbus, right? But he missed most of last season. I think they're more likely to want him to get his legs under him to start the year. But he should be in camp a lot longer this time around. He should be able to make more of an impression. More importantly, he's just got to get to camp healthy, right? There's service time games, right? If they're going to call him up, all that kind of stuff too is going to play into that. So I'd be surprised if he breaks camp with them. If he hits the crap out of the ball and they make some other moves and guys get hurt, you never know, but I think it's unlikely. Miles Straw's on the roster, on the non-roster invitee list. He's not on the 40, but he's there. George Valera is on that list, but he's going to be rehabbing from his knee injury. I know he's biking again. It seems like he's getting some mobility back. That's great to see. Khalil Watson listed as an outfielder. He played all over the diamond last year in Akron. He played a lot of second base. Also played a lot of outfield. He's listed as an outfielder here. I saw him playing outfield last year in spring training. Now looks like he's officially made the switch, even though he'll probably play around. The one name we all got asked about, obviously, was that Travis Bazzana was not on this list. And that's not really a surprise at all, because it's the same exact scenario as Chase DeLauter a year ago, right? Don't want to put a lot of pressure on him. Don't want to bring all that attention, whatever it is. He's already got a lot of attention for the number one pick. You put expectations on him. I don't think they're going to want to do that in camp. And quite frankly, they have to settle who's going to be at second base to start the season. And no matter how excited we are for Travis, and we want him up sooner than later because he is the answer in the future at that position, and they need him at some point, hopefully this year, he's not the guy who's going to break camp with them in April. And they have to figure out at second base, is that going to be Juan Brito? Is it possibly Gabriel Arias? Is it Angel Martinez, even though they haven't really mentioned his name there? They mentioned Freeman and Schneemann, all those kind of guys. They need those guys to get the bulk of the reps at second base. That doesn't mean there's not reps to be had, but they need those guys to get playing time, especially Brito, to see who's going to break camp at second base for them. And again, for Travis, it's just about managing expectations, not putting too much on there. And I think you'll see a lot of Travis Bazzana in camp the same way you saw Chase DeLauter in 2024. I think he will be up with the big league club quite a bit. You'll see him in some major league games. I don't think they're going to shy away from promoting him, being on the team as far as, hey, come watch him and come see this prospect. I don't think they're going to shy away from that at all. But you manage expectations. You allow him to play in some spring training games. You let him work out with the big league club during spring training the same way Chase DeLauter did last year. Keeps expectations down. So when you say, well, he hasn't been cut on the roster, he's not on the non-roster invitee list. And that could always change. They can always add guys. So, there's no saying he won't be or someone else won't be, but I think it's the same scenario as Chase DeLauter a year ago, where you manage expectations, you invite him up to stay with the big league club, even after he's been reassigned to minor league camp, all that kind of stuff. And you just keep expectations there. So I would still expect to see quite a bit of Travis Bazzana. If you're going to spring training, I think you'll get a chance to see him on the major league field at some point. Wouldn't be surprised to see him quite a bit at all, honestly. So that's why he's not on the roster. That's what I think you'll see with him this year. And obviously the most notable omission, if you will, from that roster. All right, we're going to talk about International Signing Day coming up. Look at the Guardians class. I don't have a ton of info on this, to be honest with you, outside of scouting reports I've read on Baseball America. But I'll give you my takeaway on the overarching theme of this class. We'll talk about money. We'll talk about trades. Let's Trade Talk Thursday. We'll talk about some trades that still could happen potentially, and why trades aren't happening. We have a good listener comment of why trades aren't happening in the offseason for the Guardians. And we'll also talk about how it's been 4 years since the Lindor trade. We'll have a take on that as well. All coming up on the rest of today's show. I love to talk about Gametime. I love going to live events, sports, music, theater, comedy. Cleveland's got a great theater community. They got a great comedy community. Honestly, Cleveland's great for live events, whether it's a sporting event. We get the best theater shows outside of Broadway. Comedians want to come here. Concerts, all that kind of stuff. We don't really get concerts. That's the shameful thing. But there's a lot of great live events. And now Gametime has made it easier for you to get tickets to all your favorite live events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. It filters out all the fluff, shows you the best deals on the great seats. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I was just checking Gametime because I have next Monday off from work. And the Cavs are at home, I see. They're playing at 3:30. They're playing the Suns. I might go to that game so I can still be home to watch Ohio State win the national championship. I see right now on Gametime that the get-in price is $55. It's telling me right there. And it's got super deals, amazing deals. I see 228 row 1, 106 all in pricing to get in that for a ticket. Not bad for Cavs Suns. It's a hot ticket right now. Turn in the all-in pricing. Find out exactly how much you're going to pay to get into your event without worrying about surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download Gametime app, create an account. You're going to use our code LOCKEDONMLB to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create the account, redeem our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off Gametime. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. Appreciate you guys tuning in today on a solo episode of Locked On Guardians. We are free everywhere and anywhere you get podcasts, including YouTube, wherever you're listening now. You can also listen on Amazon Music for ad-free if you're into that kind of thing too, which is great. I want to remind you too, if you're tuning in, Locked On Guardians live stream fest, please sign up to be an insider. We'd love to have you on that day on our Google Meet, chat, whatever we're doing. But let us know what time you want to be on there. We'd love to have you on there. Sign up for that. All right. International signing classes. The Guardians announced theirs today. They had $6 million to spend, a little over $6 million to spend in this class. And I didn't see a whole lot of bonus news out there, but I will say what I did see is that the Guardians don't have any seven-figure players in this class, as of what I'm seeing, and they have almost a $7 million class. There might be a couple of seven, they might be one or two seven-figure guys, but the top of the class, it's not a great international signing class from what I've read. People are really down on it. There's not a lot of high players. There's a lot of people who are holding out on Roki Sasaki, obviously. That's the big one. So for Cleveland, I'll throw the names at the bottom of the YouTube screen. It's catcher Hyverson Lopez. It's shortstop Heinz Brito, shortstop Luis Garcia. These are the big three in this class from what I've seen. They've got some catchers as well. They got a couple pitchers. They don't really do a whole lot with pitchers. They've got a couple outfielders as well. It's not a huge class. The one thing I'll note about this is that they have two Venezuelan catchers. This team loves Venezuelan catchers. And that might surprise you because none of them have ever made it to the majors. This team has signed a lot of Venezuelan catchers over the years. And the last Venezuelan catcher that made it, I don't even remember. I don't think Victor Martinez is Venezuelan. I think he is. That might be the last one. I'm going to look that up real quick. But this team has signed a lot of Venezuelan catchers over the years. And Victor Martinez is Venezuelan. Last one I can think of, honestly. I can go back and I can tell you some of the names because I've had them on my list in the years past. There's some still in the system that you probably never heard of because we don't talk about them. And this goes back a couple years. You have Victor Torres, who is the nephew of Cesar Torres and Macy Torres, one-time Cleveland prospect. 2022 signing. We're going 2 years into him. He's not gone anywhere yet. Pedro Delmago 2 years ago. Jose Cedeno, 2022. Guy who we've heard some about, but obviously hasn't made it on the radar. Manuel Mejias is only 20, but he was signed in 2021. He has not made it out of rookie ball. Made it to A ball. David Leon, 2021 signing. Robert Lopez, 2021 signing. There's a lot of minor league catchers that they've signed from Venezuela the last several years. I was just looking one up that got released. I didn't even know he got released. Emilio Tavares, who was a guy I liked a lot, actually. I was excited about him. Released. 2019 signing. This team loves Venezuelan catchers, yet they haven't actually graduated into the major since Victor Martinez, as far as I can tell. Go back and look at their catchers. Like, it's Bo Naylor, right? Roberto Perez was drafted out of Puerto Rico. Gon Gomes traded for. Luke Marson before him, right? Carlos Santana traded for. Their catchers the last several years have just not been from that class. They have not produced that. I'm surprised they keep going for it. All these catchers are left-handed. They're 5'10". They're contact-oriented. They're stocky. It's a profile they love. And Garcia and Brito are cut from the same mold as all their other prospects. They're Brian Rocchios. They're not quite Aaron Bracho-esque. They're Angel Martinez-esque. High contact, switch hitter, under 6 foot, 150 pounds, 5'10", 170 pounds, contact first. This is all the Guardians do in their international classes. And I have to ask, what do they have to show for it? What do they have to show for these classes? Dorsis Paulino was a 7-figure guy in that one of those classes. Didn't make it out of Lynchburg. Aaron Bracho, now with the Dodgers. Big money signing. Brian Rocchio made it. Angel Martinez made it. There's some other guys that are up, obviously, right? But, Noel, Valera have been part of these classes as well. They just have not had a lot of success in the international class. They play it very safe in international class. Angel Hanal might be great. Robin Francisco, people really like him. But I can tell you, Gabriel Rodriguez, who's the highest ever international sign, this team gave him a bonus of $2 million a bunch of years ago. Not the one they signed last year, but this is like back in 2017, they signed him to a $2 million bonus. The highest ever bonus they gave an international player, besides Danny Baez, who didn't count because he was Cuban. Remember Danny Baez? He was a lot of fun. Gabriel Rodriguez is out of baseball. He moved from shortstop to third base. He had one glimmerish year in Lake County where I was like, oh, maybe this is it. Gone. The international market just has not worked for them. And I think it's time for them to change their approach. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expect new results. It's time to change it. I've been saying this. It's time to change it. That's why I would have been all for trying to sign Sasaki. Maybe they did. Maybe they tried to sign Roki and he was like, I don't want your money. Maybe he said that. I don't know. It was a fun little ruse that his agent put out that Roki Sasaki was going to consider a mid-market team because he didn't want overbearing media. And now the final three are the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Blue Jays, which, Dodgers, big media, but they just won, so there won't be as much pressure. The Dodgers aren't as big, and then the Blue Jays, they have a big media market. They're the only team in Canada, but weird. On that note of international signings, is a trade still possible? So the Padres, the Blue Jays, and the Dodgers have not announced their signing class yet, and that's because they're still waiting on Roki Sasaki's decision. And the Dodgers have lost a couple players already. I don't know if the Padres or the Blue Jays have. But these three teams are holding out in their signings because they were the three finalists for Roki Sasaki. Now, the Dodgers don't have as much money in their class right now as the Blue Jays and the Padres. The Padres both have, and Blue Jays both have a little over $6 million to spend. The Dodgers have $5 million. And I think because his original team in Japan gets all the money, or gets a lot of it, will get, whatever money out of this. They're going to want him to go to the highest bidder. It's going to take somebody's entire pool. So there's a good chance that all three of these teams, especially the Dodgers, will be looking to make trades to add to their international class and their bonus pool. The Dodgers, they don't need Roki Sasaki, but if they want to sign him, they're going to need more money than they have now. So I would expect them, if they're going to get him, to make a trade. Unless you can't do deferred money with him. It doesn't work. He's not subject to those rules. The Blue Jays, they're under a lot of pressure because they've missed on Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto. They want to get Roki Sasaki, and they need him. They need bats too. But they, could use some extra money to hoard off the Dodgers or the Padres and do that. Not surprised the Guardians obviously have a good relationship with the Blue Jays. They traded Andres Gimenez there this offseason. The front office is trying to save their jobs. They're former Cleveland guys. Could be a good connection there. And of course, the Guardians have a long history with the Padres trading, right? Would not be a surprise to see that there. As far as value is concerned, it's in the eye of the beholder because this Roki Sasaki thing is a little bit different. This is a very valuable international free agent at a very, very low cost for the talent you're getting because of the age he's signing at, and he's still subject to international bonus pool rules. So teams should be desperate. Maybe that raises the floor of the value a little bit. You can only trade international bonus money in $250,000 increments. So last year, the Guardians traded $250,000 in international money to Texas for Zach Kent, who missed most of the year with an injury. He was a former Texas prospect, whatever. Could the value be a little bit higher because this is money that they need for Roki Sasaki? Maybe. It could be. But I don't think it's going to be that high. I don't think we're talking about anybody significant here. There have been rumors about bigger name prospects being moved for a lot more money. We'll see when that all bears out. But generally, we're talking about depth guys here. So like a utility guy, up and down arm, maybe a little bit a bullpen guy. Maybe there'll be more. Maybe the Roki Sasaki thing will drive these teams to want to give up more to get the money if they're really confident they're going to sign him and they do this. So we'll see. The Dodgers aren't going to have the most money, but I still think he's going to sign there just because that's how this goes. But all these teams could, the Padres especially need him. The Blue Jays definitely need him, but I don't know if it makes a difference because their offense is not good either, but we'll see. All right, we have a couple more comments on trades. We're going to talk about the Francisco Lindor trade 4 years ago as well, and if the Guardians could have done better on that and where they are now, all coming up on the rest of today's Locked On Guardians. Before we get there, quick shout-outs. I want to make sure we shout out Patrick Tyler Diliala, 5398, so he's an everydayer on YouTube. Definitely appreciate that. We've got a lot of people emailing the show, too. Again, last week got a great email from Tyler. Carl's asking questions. Pete's asking questions in the email. David Reynolds, Richard, Matt. Appreciate all you guys. If you want to email the show, it is LOGuardiansShow, all one word, Locked On Guardians, LOGuardiansShow @gmail.com if you want to leave us an email. You can read that on the air. Had an interesting comment from also JG6361 on YouTube saying Cleveland does not make offseason trades where they trade prospects for an established major leaguer. Best I can tell, it's been 10 years since they made a deal like that was Moss for Wendell. And indeed, JG is right. The last time this happened was Moss for Wendell. The Guardians have made offseason trades before, right? We're going to talk about the Lindor trade. That was an offseason move. They traded Nolan Jones for Juan Brito. They traded Junior Caminero for Tobias Myers, as everyone loves to remember that one, right? That's a classic one. They traded Will Benson. That was closer to spring training. They've made moves in the offseason. They've traded guys in the offseason, but they haven't traded for major leaguers. He's exactly right. They have not done that historically. It has been over 10 years since they have done that now. That was the offseason of 2014 going into 2015. And I don't know whether that's a Guardians thing, if it's obviously not a whole MLB thing, because there have been trades where that's been happening in the past. And obviously the Red Sox and the Marlins we talked about were the most active teams in that realm of trades this offseason. Nobody else has been. There have not been prospect or major league trades of significance this offseason, minus Miami and the White Sox, because we know they're poo-poo and they're not trying. They're trying less than everybody else is trying. Fantastic, because half the sport feels like it's not trying except for the Dodgers. So, gotta love that. I don't know why the Guardians aren't doing this, though. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be their way. They seem to want to coast into the season, see how things go. I mean, going into 2017, they signed Edwin, they signed Boone Logan. They kind of, they still Andrew Miller. They ended up trading for Jay Bruce later in that year. They felt like they had pieces. Michael Brantley was coming back off injury, all that kind of stuff. They felt like they had pieces. 2018, they signed Alonso. They lost. They did trade Edwin for Jake Bowers. They traded that in that deal. That was major league for prospect. Yeah, they have not done this. This is not a thing. So I guess at this point, don't expect it until they change. It's been 10 years. It's a pattern. And I believe Mark Shapiro was still the GM at that point. So this is a pattern. And this is how we cover the team. We look at patterns. We look at history. So this is a pattern. They don't do this. Trades they have done. Francisco Lindor. Everyone wants to revisit this. I revisit this because it's been 4 years. It was the offseason of 2020 going to 2021. January. 4 years since the Francisco Lindor trade. And it's more relevant this year because obviously one of the pieces of that trade, and Andres Gimenez, is now in Toronto. I went back through some of the articles and just remember what I remember from all the stuff leading up to it, and it just seemed obvious it was going to happen. It was just a matter of when, and it came out of nowhere as far as, we didn't hear rumors. We just knew it was going to happen. And it was the Mets. Quick update on that. So Andres Gimenez, the Blue Jay, Ahmed Rosario, he signed with somebody. He's somewhere. He's in Major League Baseball. He's now in Cleveland. Josh Wolf is with the pitcher. He's with the Giants. He was released last spring or I think May. Cleveland granted him his release. He wanted out. He saw it wasn't working here. And there's Isaiah Green, who was a 2020 comp pick. He is still in Lake County, or he was in Lake County last year. Not looking good for Isaiah Green. Nice kid. Baseball-wise, not looking great. So Cleveland's got one player remaining, a guy who may or may not make it to the 2025 season in the organization. And they've got now the guys from the Jimenez trade, which includes Nick Mitchell from the Blue Jays, Luis Ortiz, who's in the rotation, obviously, Josh Hartle, and Michael Kennedy. So now we have to also evaluate the Francisco Lindor trade based on the Andres Gimenez trade. The tree grows. So this is probably a case again where the trade's not finalized. But what we can say now is this didn't work out for the Guardians. Remember, there was a time when a lot of people thought, the Guardians did great. Andres Gimenez looks great. And I bought it after 2022. Francisco Lindor didn't have a great 2022. He was struggling to adapt to New York. His numbers were okay. They weren't Francisco Lindor standard numbers. And he was making a lot of money that he deserved. And Andres Gimenez was the starting second baseman in the All-Star team. He had a great season. Cleveland locked him up that contract, and it looked great. It was like, okay, well, they got a starter for him, a guy who's an all-star. That's great. He's not Francisco Lindor, but he looks good. He went in the wrong direction, and now he's a Toronto Blue Jay. The Mets still won the trade back then, but now it's gone further in their direction until we see what happens with these Pittsburgh pitchers and Nick Mitchell. Ortiz, Zip's projections came out on Thursday, Wednesday. We'll talk about that on Monday, but the projections for Luis Ortiz look great. We'll talk about that. Hartle and Kennedy are well thought of prospects, and Nick Mitchell's, interesting. I still don't think it's, going to be enough at the end of the day, because this team would look great with Francisco Lindor and Jose Ramirez on the left side of the infield. And it's probably not real. We know we can't believe that this team would have had both, because they wouldn't have signed both. It would have been one or the other. And if they didn't trade Lindor and somehow sign him, they wouldn't have had Jose. It's the reality of where we're at. And I didn't think Francisco Lindor was ever going to sign a contract with Cleveland. I didn't think there was ever a dollar amount that was going to be offered him that made sense. And I didn't think that he actually wanted to stay in Cleveland. I think he wanted to go out and get that big money and do it for the Players Association, as there's a lot of pressure on from the Players Association to do that. And he did that in New York. It was never going to happen. And this is not it is a ownership problem. It is a Cleveland problem. Could they afford both? I actually don't believe they could afford both, even with Jose taking his discount, because even the most opposition against Francisco Lindor, or the Dolans, not Lindor. I hope nobody's against Lindor. I'm sure some are against the Dolans. I don't believe they're paying Los Angeles Dodgers, New York Mets money for payroll, right? I don't think we believe that. The highest the payroll has ever been for the Guardians was in the 140 range, and that was in 2018 at the very peak of that run. And it's been going down ever since. John Sherman left. They had to hold his money up until they could sell his portion. It was in escrow, and it was not good, all that stuff. What it comes down to is that if the Dolans can't, if this current ownership group cannot support a payroll that's like 110, 120, and I'm not saying that's a lot. 120 is not even a lot. But there are like 3 or 4 teams who are scraping the $100 million mark. Barely. And Cleveland's one of them. Might be under $100 million to start. And by the end of the season, they'll probably go over 100. Unless things go very poorly. It doesn't work in this day and age. Back in 2002, 2001, their payroll was way higher than that. Doesn't work in this day and age. So we can believe that the Guardians can't pay what the Dodgers and the Mets pay. But if they can't pay in the $120 million range for a payroll, what's the point? And that wouldn't have kept Lindor. That wouldn't have kept Lindor. But what's the point if you can't run out a payroll of 110, 120, and you're just getting by on 97, 100, 105? What's the point? That's what I would say. What's the point? Going back, though, looking at the alternatives for the Francisco Lindor trade, it really came down to the Blue Jays and Mets in January of 2021. And there was no evidence of what the Blue Jays supposedly offered. I know there was an article out there. We don't know for sure. But at the time, for the Blue Jays, if you look back, that infield already included Vladimir Guerrero at first base. Marcus Semien was their second baseman. They had Bo Bichette. Their third baseman was a split between Santiago Espinal and Kevin Biggio. They had a top prospect at the time named Austin Martin, who Cleveland drafted out of high school a couple years before that. My guess is it would have been something like Biggio and maybe a Martin and then another minor leaguer, is my guess. Would that have been a better trade than what they got? No, because that trade doesn't include anybody any better than Andres Gimenez, honestly. I don't know. I can't say this for sure. There's Alejandro Kirk, who they supposedly have liked in the past too. There's other guys in the system I think that they also like too, and there's guys that I like too. But the Blue Jays farm system back in 2021 wasn't good. All those guys have been promoted. Kevin Biggio is a nepo baby infielder who's been a nomad, moving around. Baseball hasn't been very good. Jordan Groshans hasn't panned out. Nate Pearson's hurt. Alek Manoah has failed. He had one good year. Everybody else after that has not really made an impact at the major league level. So those are the two teams that seem to be between. And I think it worked out for the Guardians and the Mets deal. I'm not saying it was a good trade, but if you compare the two, I think they made the right deal out of the two. That looked obvious. I don't see a match there of where it would have made sense for the Mets, but we'll never know. Let me know what you think of the Francisco Lindor 4 years later. How do you feel about now waiting to evaluate the Pirates' return in that trade? Are you willing to be patient and see how that comes out? Do you already feel like they lost the trade? Or we know they lost the trade. Let's be honest. They lost that trade. But do you feel like you're willing to wait around and evaluate and see how these Pittsburgh pitchers do as part of the calculus? And maybe that changes your mind a little bit or eases it. Or do you feel like you're already out on that? We'll see. All right. 26 days until pitchers and catchers report. I was just kind of goofing around looking back at the history of number 26 for the Guardians / Indians. Very interesting history. You go back quite a ways. We got Hoyt Wilhelm, obviously a big name. Some names that I'm familiar with. Boog Powell, obviously a famous name with the Indians franchise wearing that. And then Brooke Jacoby, one of the third infielders in Cleveland history, more a famous name for a long time, wore number 26. After Brooke Jacoby, though, things went pretty iffy. Jesse Levis, very bad. Jeff Manto, a couple interesting years. Yeah, Casey Candale. Bob Wickman wore number 26 the entire length of his Indians career. He was a fun one. After that, former number 1 overall pick Brian Bullington of the Pirates made one appearance. How about that for a fun fact? Trevor Crowe once wore 26. Luke Carlin, and then it was Austin Kearns and Derek Lowe, two guys who were flash in the pan guys at the end of their career for Cleveland. Scott Kazmir had a great year wearing number 26, and after that, Gavin Floyd, who had a much opposite year. Mike Napoli in 2016 wore 26. That was good. Austin Jackson came and deal the next year, played really well for Cleveland in 2017. So 2 years in a row, that was a good number. Rajai Davis wore it in 2018, coming back a second time, not as good. Since 2018, let's actually say since 2017, Davis's good year. Not great. Not a great number. We've had Max Moroff, Christian Arroyo, Tristan McKenzie for a year, and then Anthony Gose. I don't know who 26 is right now, but unless it's a third baseman or a big-bellied closer, which they don't have right now, or maybe it's a one-year free agent that we haven't talked about yet, not looking great. Not looking great. Guardians don't have one of those free agents. Austin Hedges switching number to 26. I don't know. Best I can say. All right. Please, again, subscribe to all of our channels, whether it's on audio or YouTube. We're trying to get to 4K on YouTube. We're 300 away from that, so we appreciate that. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. We appreciate that. Sign up to be a Locked On Guardians Insider. That is always in the show description. You can sign up at any time. And you can join us for Locked On Guardians Live Stream Fest. That is February 1st. If you're going to sign up, let us know what time works for you so we can set it up so we can get the most of our insiders on the call at the same time. Again, we're looking at special guests. I know we'll have Sully from Locked On MLB. We've reached out to some others. We'll see what happens. We'll let you know when guests are confirmed. But Saturday, February 1st is the date. So sign up to be an insider and have all kinds of fun conversations with us over on the Insiders group. Email the show at loguardianshow@gmail.com. Take the listener survey. There's a listener survey link in the show description as well. If you haven't done the survey yet, I can always email it to you too as well. So do that. We'll be back with you on Monday. Jeff and I will talk about Zips surprises, the Zips projection from Dan Zamborski at Fangraphs. That came out on Wednesday. We'll talk about some surprises, and we'll do some over-unders on those projections. Then Tuesday, Jeff will be back with you for some draft talk, I'm sure, and Thursday, I'll be back for Trade Talk Thursday. We'll discuss that all next week on Locked On Guardians. In the meantime, stay warm, stay safe. Enjoy your weekend. We'll be back on Monday so I can say go Buckeyes then, but go Buckeyes. And in the meantime, go Guardians, go.